So much for that Thank you so much for that introduction, Debbie, and Audrey, of course, for helping to set it up, the whole impact for breakfast community coming together to help look at solutions for one of the biggest and most audacious challenges of our time, which is the plastic waste and the intersection of plastic waste, inequality, and resource scarcity. So I hope that in the next 50 minutes, we'll have a deep dive into that. And if anything, you'll gain a good understanding of the different ways of approaching it. I do apologize for any background noise. I am actually in transit today from the Frankfurt airport, fresh off the plane from Bangalore. So do bear with me if there's any announcements. It's not my office. There's there's the Frankfurt airport here. So without further ado, I will dive into a presentation to provide an overview of Plastics for Change and what we're up to. So as I mentioned, we believe that the plastic waste problem is one of the biggest challenges of our time. And now more than ever, there's so much pressure on the industry to make progress, driven from consumers that are demanding more environmentally responsible goods. There's legislation taxing the use of virgin plastic. There's a global plastics treaty coming into fruition. And then there's also just the fundamental need to decarbonize our supply chains and address the plastic waste challenges. And then at the same time, there's this huge social issue in the plastic sector, where there's at least 20 million people at the base of the supply chain who are picking up all the discarded plastics and making their livelihood from doing it. They're often the poorest people in society, people that have multiple barriers to a formal employment opportunity, whether that's illiteracy, or even we see now a lot of migrant workers that have moved, whether that's from a climate-related issue, but have moved into a city to create a livelihood by picking up this discarded material. And so globally, 60% of all the plastic that's collected for the circular economy comes from the informal sector, which is massive. In Southeast Asia, this number is even higher. For PET bottles in Southeast Asia, 95% of the collection happens from the informal waste economy. And these supply chains are so highly fragmented and they're unorganized. And as a result, today, only 2% of the plastic that's collected for recycling actually is able to replace the use of virgin plastic material because of the quality standards, which is a pretty low number. So we've developed this solution where we have an ethical sourcing platform that connects this informal waste economy, connects the waste collectors with global brands and manufacturers to help them not only achieve their recycling goal, get access to the high quality material, but do that through supply chains that are third-party verified, working with, well, we did 8 third-party audits last year, but in particular, we really pride ourselves on validating our claims through the third-party verification from ocean-bound plastics, as well as the WFTO, the World Fair Trade Organization. So we started with the Body Shop and shipped our first container in 2018. The Body Shop first supported the program in 2016, and we were very lucky. They had their first community fair trade program, which started in India some 35 years ago. So we took a lot of those systems and processes from fair trade agriculture, the way that smallholder farmers are connected, and then use those same methodologies for connecting the waste collectors at the base of the supply chain. And now we're working with many of the largest brands in the cosmetic space and also the fashion space. And how it works is we start by understanding the needs of the industry. So for example, if a company needs 100 tons per month of polypropylene, let's say, for a certain application, we'd start by just understanding what the requirements are, And then we then reverse engineer the supply chain to be able to ensure access to that material and make sure that material is delivered on time, while also reverse engineering the supply chain for social impact. So for example, this starts with mapping. We would map, say, 1,000 waste collectors who pick up all the plastic with approximately 100 scrap shops. And then the scrap shops we then pick up the material and bring it to these plastics for change collection centers. This is where the plastic is accumulated in bulk and segregated as per the quality assurance and quality control processes needed to make sure that it's fit for purpose with manufacturing applications. This is, and I'll dive into each section of the supply chain in a little more detail. And then from there, the plastic is then fed into the existing supply chain's granule maker that's nominated generally by the brand. So it's a plug and play solution where we're replacing the material that's coming from the informal waste traders, where there's no compliance with material that's coming from our supply chains, where it's third-party verified from the World Fair Trade Organization and other third-party verification bodies. And the key is behavior change. You can imagine working with this network of informal waste workers. Today, the entire supply chain, business as normal, it works on exploitation. The person who's the cheapest wins the contract, and generally the person who's the cheapest is also has the least amount of compliance standards. So the way that we flip that paradigm is the scrap shops. These are the small mom and pop shops, maybe 2 or 3 people working there. They issue a buy-sell transaction on our app. So they buy it from the waste collectors and then sell it to us. And in addition to building the transparency, there's also a gamification feature where the more that they comply to the principles of fair trade, the more incentives they get. And we have, in every supply chain, we have one full-time person monitoring the supply chains for the compliance standards. But more importantly, we also have 2 to 3 social service workers in every supply chain that are working full-time on all of the poverty alleviation activities. So this is starting with a mapping exercise where we understand the needs of the community, but then providing access to things like healthcare, education, early childhood nutrition is very important, setting up creches, and then eventually getting to the point where there's also financial literacy and availing access to some of the existing government schemes. So this is done through our foundation. That's a separate entity, and then the for-profit entity, the actual trade, and facilitates the delivery and ensuring that the brands are able to meet their recycling goals. So overall, this approach allows us to have really good relationships with the waste collectors and scrap shops at the base of the supply chain. And we believe that this is ultimately where the future growth is in the industry. Today, it's very hard to disrupt the waste management systems in developed countries. It's all based on government contracts and big legacy waste management companies like Veolia or somebody. So it's very hard to disrupt that. Whereas in the global south, there's 20 million waste collectors just waiting to be serviced or to be able to connect them to these supply chains and be, we've positioned Plastics for Change to really be the best at serving the base of the supply chain, because whoever is the best at serving the waste collectors and the scrap shops is going to get access to the raw material, is going to win the race. And we believe that the race for raw materials has just started. The plastics industry is extremely premature. Global recycling rates last year were not even double digits. Whereas all of the regulation, even just the 2025 regulation is mandating, there's a cohesion around 25% recycled plastic as a minimum, and then scaling up over time. So yeah, huge potential to connect the millions and millions of people at the space of the supply chain using this methodology. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are percolating questions. Maybe we can just save those for the end and we can come back to this slide after. I'll try to continue to address them as I go through the rest of the presentation. So in summary, the keys to success is that we ensuring the right quality. So actually I should touch on that. So at our Plastics for Change centers, the plastic goes through an ISO standard quality assurance and quality control methodology. So the plastic is hand-picked with a conveyor belt, and then it goes through a second conveyor belt for quality control. So this is an extremely effective methodology. We also log all the QC QA data on our app, and we've never had a container load of plastic rejected in our lifetime because of how robust this is. Whereas in the informal sector, people are always cheating and lying and putting heavy things into the stream to have it weigh more. And it's, as a result, it's very hard to achieve quality standards typically. The second key to success is being able to measure our impact and make that available for brands in their communication strategy. We've launched, just this quarter, we've launched a new feature where we now have a live dashboard. So in real time, you can see all of the impact that we're creating at the base of the supply chain. So for example, not only the amount of plastic collected, but also things like access to getting a new identity card. In the moment our social service worker logs that activity, it shows up on our dashboard. So this is the first in the world that we know of for the recycling industry for brands to have real-time transparency into tier 7. Most of them don't even know what's going on. They don't even know where tier 3 is, let alone a real-time impact dashboard in tier 7. And then, of course, the cost marketing support. So we launched this with the Body Shop. We defined this product category of fair trade verified recycled plastic. We were the first to achieve this verification, not only from the Body Shop's internal fair trade program, but also the WFTO.
Andrew, we just lost you the last few sentences. I don't know if you went on mute. Can you please check?
I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So I was just saying that we've demonstrated the ability for brands to increase sales by through this type of cost marketing campaign. In particular, we measured the sales online in the cosmetic sector and compared Q1 2021 versus Q2 2022, and saw that this campaign had increased sales 30%, which you could imagine the increase in gross profits from sales increasing 30% versus the raw material cost of switching from virgin to recycled plastic. So highly, highly profitable for the brands. And then we have a diversified portfolio where actually it's more like 75% of our revenue now is plastic sales. This is selling the plastic to the brands with the fair trade, all the bells and whistles, and it's all packaged up for them. We also have a merchandise vertical. So we recognize that in the polyester industry, we had some extra polyester left over a few years ago, and we actually made a few bags, and we got 3 sales just in our first quarter of launching this vertical. And we have a huge competitive advantage on any other player that's making merchandise, because even if you sell, say, 200,000 garments, you're only actually recycling like a couple tons of plastic, and you can help like one scrap shop. Whereas we have the whole supply chain and we're helping thousands of scrap shops, and we have the whole impact and traceability and economies of scale. So from an impact and from a story perspective and a impact measurement perspective, we're positioned to really dominate the merchandise and apparel sector. And then same with the plastic credits. So over the last 2 or 3 years, plastic credits have emerged in the same way that carbon credits have emerged. So this is where people actually pay for the cost of collection to enable more collection and the collection of materials that otherwise would not be collected. So we also have a very unique competitive advantage in this space because our supply chains are third-party verified, and comes with all the social additionalities in addition to the environmental additionalities. And then on to our growth. So we've achieved awesome growth, 3x growth now, averaging 4 straight years. So starting with the launch of our first sale in 2019, raising a $2 million round of capital in 2020, and then scaling up across South India. And we want to continue this exponential growth. If we keep on this growth curve, we'll reach 1 million by 2028, based on our current growth forecast. But this is our big goal, is to try to get approximately 5% market share, if you will, or connect 1 million out of the 20 million informal waste workers. And ultimately just disrupting this $500 billion virgin plastics industry, which, by the way, is supposed to triple in the next decade. There's just so much more virgin plastic coming online. And when you compare that to the amount of funding that's going into cleaning it all up, it's a very, very small ratio. So the size of the problem is growing exponentially. Even just in India, in India, the amount of plastic that's consumed has doubled in the last 5 years. So you can imagine, like, even if we're just a business as normal, regular company, if the market is doubling every 5 years, there's a lot of, the pie is getting bigger quickly. And not to mention all the other trends and regulations and things that are in our favor. So our success is mainly, of course, due to our awesome team. The core management team itself has all been together now for four to 5 years. And we have, just an amazing group of folks here in South India that help to make everything possible. And we've been on this amazing journey together, from launching the first fair trade verified recycled plastic, raising our capital, validating our growth metrics, launching an additional merchandise vertical, and then increasing our supply capacity to 10,000 tons of installed collection, and then leading into our Series A round of investment to further replicate this model, not only within India, but also expanding into the Philippines. So we've secured an initial funding for replicating and creating a center in the Philippines. And then we've also secured funding to do the need assessment and mapping phase in West Africa to help replicate it. So we want to roll this out. We've also, in this quarter, have demonstrated success with a franchisee model for the plastics collection centers. So this will help us achieve more rapid scalability, in the same way that McDonald's is owning some of the McDonald's, but also franchising some of these McDonald's. We want to do the same thing and have a plug and play solution for scrap entrepreneurs that want to be able to not learn all of the hard things and try to replicate all the hard things that our senior management team has done over the last 5 years, and just take all of our systems and processes, our brand, our standard operating procedures, our app, and be able to have a real turnkey solution for increasing their business profitability and growth. So I have a bunch of other slides and case studies, but I think it might be a good time to just pause and go into questions, and then I can address them as we take things forward.
Thank you very much, Andrew, for this insightful presentation. Dear participants, you can just unmute yourself if you have questions, and share them with us all. And if you can't speak, you can post them in the chat field, and I'll make sure to bring them up and share them with Andrew. Sarah is asking, do you see regulations techno replacing plastic at all?
No, I don't. I think with the regulations, so let me collect my thoughts. Alternative to plastics have been around for a long time. Like bioplastics have been around for a very, very long time. Now, the reason why they've not achieved a lot of traction is because they're also more expensive, one. And then secondly, when it comes to like the rigid categories, the current systems, you don't want bioplastics mixed in with the regular plastics because it contaminates the stream and it causes a bunch of challenges. So I just don't think the regulators will push for that. I do see a movement or like the best product market fit for bioplastics is in the small format flexibles. So like your little ketchup sachet, for example, because that's very hard to like create a circular economy for plastics because it's so lightweight and hard to recycle. So in those applications, I see bioplastics having a good fit. But I don't see that disrupting the markets that we serve, mainly the bottle industry, beverage bottles, cosmetics, and fabrics. Yeah.
Thank you. I just heard before someone unmute us. Please go ahead with
Hey,
your
Andrew.
question.
Hi, I'm Thomas. Thank you for presenting this journey. It's really, really impressive. I have a question regarding the waste collector as a community or as a group of people on how you guys access them and make them on board, understanding maybe that they are enticed to supply their product to other players or get a different price somewhere. So how do you make sure that they know you and really stick to your value stream? Thank you.
Yeah, excellent question. So it all is based on trust. It's who is able to build the trust and the relationships with the informal waste economy is ultimately the one who's going to gain access to this sector. And so the way that we do that is we start by doing the mapping phase where we map out all the scrap shops. We do the need assessment as well, and we build the relationship with them. So it takes 6 to 9 months working with the scrap shops to actually get them onboarded onto our platform properly and to then be audit ready for a WFTO audit. So it's relationships. I think that our app is also like we've done a lot to develop our app and user interface, but fundamentally I don't see there being any disruption from technology per se, because the informal sector, they care about trust and human relationships rather than an optimized user interface.
Great, thank you. May I just add a second question with regards to the fair trade labeling of plastic? How do you guys are looking for a fair trade label, and is it like an official one to position yourself globally about that, or what is the story behind that? Thank you.
Yeah, so today all of our brand partners, the information at the point of purchase is the Plastics for Change brand. Now the third-party verification agencies that we use, we did 8 third-party verification agencies last year. When I was starting Plastics for Change, I did in the initial stage, I went around and I met with everybody. I met with Flowcert, I went with Fair Trade International, I went with everybody. Yeah, but the only one that was really positioned to do this type of third-party verification was the WFTO. But we're open, like, so if most of the brands will also have their own internal kind of compliance check, which we accommodate as well.
Thank you, Thomas. We have another question from Jabulani, wants to know what your growth and development strategy is for South African market.
For the South African market, yes. Oh, it's a big world out there. South Africa, Johannesburg in particular, would be a good kind of city for us to replicate the model. Our internal kind of mantra is follow the babies. So wherever there's emerging economies with rapid population growth, there's almost always a correlation where the waste management systems are not in place yet. So that's a great opportunity where we can go be the first movers to connect all the scrap shops, build that loyalty, trust, and continue to grow and be the largest fair trade verified recycling company. We don't have any plans to expand into South Africa right now, but if we can raise our Series A, the sky's the limit.
Jabulani, if you have any follow-up question, please feel free to unmute yourself. We have.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. No, we appreciate that. We've been in the industry for the past 9 years now, so I think we've got skin in the game. So whenever you're ready, and we're based in Johannesburg, the very city that you just spoke about. So we're ready, we are able and willing whenever you are ready to invest in South Africa. Thank you.
Amazing, and thank you for that comment. Maybe you could also just contact us via email as well. We have a franchise form that you can also fill out to kind of kickstart that, so that our franchise development team can be in touch as well. And I'm happy to speak in more detail whenever it's convenient also.
William has a question regarding the rollout of your model around the world, which goes a bit into the question before. Do you have any plans there? And can you share anything about how the model would look like and the financials?
Right, and this is with regards to the franchisee model.
Maybe, William, you could elaborate on that. Can you unmute yourself?
Yes, sorry, no, that's exactly it. I'm just back from Egypt, and as you were mentioning, 100 million population, 50% below 22 years old, and plastic everywhere. So it seems you're onto something, and it would be good to see it rolled out. But also, you need to make sure that in terms of financials, it makes sense for the investor. So it was just better understanding what you've got in mind and what is going to be the payback for the investors.
Sure. So we follow a 3-step process when we enter new regions. The first phase is doing that mapping need assessment. We send some of our field associates and just map all the stakeholders. That actually only takes 3 to 4 weeks to do that, basically getting our data. And then from there, we then go ahead and have a leadership team discussion, and we say, okay, we want to go into pilot, where we then look to source a minimum order quantity, kind of validate some of that data, and validate our assumptions. And we then, from there, we'll then go into like the go production stage gate, where based on the pilot, we say, okay, let's actually go deploy all the CapEx, all the equipment, hire managers for setting up the production operations, and go forward. So yeah, that whole process we've done it as in short amount of time as 3 months, but on average it takes 6 months, and then 9 months to be ready for verification. But we hope to get quicker and quicker at that.
Thank you, William.
The second, I realized I didn't quite answer your question on the return for investors. That's a very, very important one for this audience. So we've recognized that out of the 400 brands that have made a commitment to use recycled plastic, and none of them have actually achieved their goal yet. And most of them are dismally failing. And so we anticipate that as the regulations get more aggressive, right now there's a lot of targets set for 2025. So in procurement strategies, that's generally people start working on their 2025 targets towards at least 12 to 18 months ahead. But we anticipate that as most of the brands miss their goals, and as the regulations get ratcheted up globally, and there's more frameworks for this, that it would be very advantageous for global brands or manufacturers to acquire a stake in Plastics for Change, to be able to, one, gain access to the raw material and avoid regulatory compliance penalties, but secondly, just increasing market share with consumers that are wanting to purchase from brands that are sharing their values and demonstrating the social impact through their procurement strategy. And we also anticipate that, again, like the access to the raw materials is going to be a bigger and bigger problem. Today, global recycling rates are single digit, and they have to get to, it has to double in a very short period of time.
Does that answer your question, William?
Yes.
Wonderful.
I have a small question, just in line with the investor return. Is Andrew, where is your company based? Where's the investment going into? You're looking at Series A of $5 million, right?
Yes.
How do you see what's up? I think there was a question on the chat about what kind of investors are you looking for. Just give us a bit of color on that. That'd be great.
Sure. So we're registered as a for-profit company in Canada. That's our mother company. So that all the equity is raised through Canada. And then we have a wholly owned subsidiary in India and in the Philippines and potentially also in Africa. But that's not registered. So we raised the full Series A from our Canadian entity, and we're targeting investors that want good returns, but also the ones that share our vision for what the future looks like. So our vision is we believe that in the future, whoever is the best at serving this untapped market of waste collectors and scrap shops is going to get access to this material. And we want investors that will really help us to expand rapidly and connect more and more of these waste collectors and scrap shops. And then also sharing our vision for the social impact. We believe that the social impact is also highly profitable for our brands, right? The more social impact that we create, the more the brands are able to leverage that to increase market share. And when I first actually started Plastics for Change, I wrote a big honors thesis on this concept of creating an eco label to represent ethically sourced recycled plastic and a lot of the consumer behavior around that. So typically, if the raw material cost in theory is a 15% premium, then there's a break-even equation where 1 in 400 consumers needs to make their primary purchase decision to make the gross profits more than the raw material cost expense. So this is like the basic theory that I did back when I was writing my honors thesis. Yeah, sorry, I got rambling on for a bit, but I hope I answered your question.
Yes, thank you.
Andrew, could you comment a little bit on how you see your model vis-a-vis the models of like the TerraCycles of the world?
Yeah, so the TerraCycles of the world is, my understanding is it's more of a collection as a service. Whereas I guess like if you look at just the competitive landscape, like who are our biggest competitors and how do we play, how do we win? So first of all, by far our biggest competitors are the local informal waste traders. And they have a competitive advantage because they have no compliance costs. They don't pay any minimum wages and it's all zero regulation. So they have very low cost. So the way that we compete with them is by connecting this fragmented ecosystem with global brands and manufacturers, having the compliance standards to do that and to have the contracts with the brands and manufacturers. Other than that, like our other niche of plastic with a story, right? So companies looking to leverage plastic with a story as a way of doing cause marketing, that sector, that kind of niche is growing, but it's, at least in India, there's not a lot of really good case studies or examples, and it's because it's really hard. So achieving the fair trade compliance standards, you can't just decide to do that and roll it out. You need to have a fundamentally, you need to design like a team of teams. You need to have a different org structure, and you need to have a kind of unique business model to be able to pull that off. So yeah, and I don't really see TerraCycle as a competitor or as a like their model is more for developed regions, doing more on the collection. That's my understanding.
I imagine you may have already had some contact with Tom Zaki, but if it's useful at all to have a chat at any point, we can help connect you in future.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. I do know Tom well, and he's a fellow and very inspiring entrepreneur.
any more questions from our participants? I don't know if we covered them all. I think we got through most of the questions that are in the chat field. Sarah, please go ahead. Yeah.
What would be, Andrew, what would be the type of exit for investors in your company?
So the type of exit we anticipate for investors participating in our Series A and also our seed investors is as the regulations start to be ratcheted up and brands and manufacturers are looking for access to the raw materials, the ability to gain market share with environmentally conscious consumers, and also the ability to ultimately avoid the regulatory compliance fees. We anticipate like a strategic exit for brands that will acquire a stake in Plastics for Change and give an exit opportunity for our seed investors and the Series A investors.
Thank you.
I saw in the chat field that people are sharing their email addresses. You're welcome to do that. But just as a side note, I'll also be sharing Andrew's contact details in a follow-up note with the recording. So you can follow up with him and reach out to him if you'd like to contact him.
Andrew,
yes,
I have
Thomas,
one more question. Sorry, Deborah. Andrew, you talked about having one arm being non-for-profit, and then there's a profit entity on the trading side. And I understand that this is under one umbrella of your organization. What would be the challenges of combining this non-for-profit and profit under this one entity you guys are doing?
Yeah, so the way the nonprofit and for-profit integrate, the nonprofit, it is a separate entity, but operationally, it's kind of like it's operated as like a vertical within Plastics for Change. In fact, we're actually looking to rebrand it all from calling it foundation to just calling it social additionalities. And really its role is providing those social additionalities at the base of the supply chain. But it's quite integrated because we operate, the foundation's activities are in the same supply chains where we're sourcing the material. Yeah, it's very much like its own business vertical within the organization.
Any more questions?
I would just say, as part of, as with any of these types of conversations, there's a certain number of us that could make this call today at this time. But for those who will know folks who would have loved to have been here but couldn't make it, someone else who should know about Andrew's model, who should be connected with his organization, please do follow up and let us know so we can add additional names and make additional links as possible.
Thank you for that, Audrey. And you're also welcome to share the recording with anyone that should see this. We'll post it on our YouTube channel where you'll have access to it.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thanks everybody for attending. For those of you who are interested in taking the discussion forward and in learning more about our investment opportunity, please do reach out, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have, and hopefully be able to lead this movement of fair trade recycling globally together.
Thank you very much, Andrew. And thank you everyone for joining today's session. And please reach out to Andrew, as said before. And we look forward to seeing you at another Impact for Breakfast session in the future. More of our events you can see on the program on our website. So look forward to seeing you all another time, and wish you all a great day ahead. And for you, Andrew, safe travels. And look forward to being in touch.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. If any, I'm actually in the at the plastic recycling show. I'm not sure if anyone's going to be there. And then also Interpack, doing a couple of trade shows back to back. So if serendipitously you're in Germany or Amsterdam, do stop by our booth.
Wonderful. Thank you for that, Andrew. Bye-bye, everybody. Take care.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.